Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Dive deep into humane leadership crafted for today's fast-paced business world. Listen to our podcast on all major streaming platforms and join us as we explore the essence of humane leadership in today's dynamic business landscape. I'm Roberto Torres, seasoned startup engineering leader, alongside Chris Olakin, a Fortune 100 IT. Today, we will be discussing how does a humiliator get insights about a company they want to work at in preparation for the interview. Hi, Chris. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Roberto. I'm doing great. I hope you're feeling energetic, as this is kind of a hot topic lately, isn't it?
It is. And I'm being 100% and totally boosted.
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly our humane leaders that are out there listening, they probably have good people networks and everything, but they probably cannot have a friend who works at every single company that they might go work at. That's always the best angle for finding information, is have a friend that works there. But when they don't have that, there are a lot of publicly available data sets for us to analyze, right? There are things like, and my favorite one is to go to the company's website, assuming it's a big company, publicly traded in the stock market, either a U.S. stock market or a local stock market to your country, is look at what they have on their website, right? Start with just the basics of what do they have on their website? What do they say about their culture? But a really deep dive one is to look and see if they have an investors tab. It's usually way down at the bottom of the website, and look at what they have available for investors, because there's where they're trying to sell their company to people to invest in it. And you can learn a lot by listening to the quarterly reports, the Investors Day conference calls, and really hear what the company's leadership says the direction of the company is going to be. I think you can find a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, indeed. And as you mentioned to me before, you can see the earnings call, maybe the quarterly or the annually, and maybe look at some videos that maybe it might be live. And with that in mind, you should not fully understand, but understand a little bit better how the company is going and having and paying attention to specific keywords, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because I'll tell you, big corporations, they don't lie, but they use kind of words like politicians do. You have to listen and learn the key codes, the key words, right? And so if in their investors day, they're saying, gosh, we're doing great, and we've introduced 3 new products, and we're really working on boosting our employee productivity. Now, in some companies, it means exactly that. You're boosting their productivity, and that's great. You're giving them better tools to do more with less. In some other companies, boosting productivity means we're going to lay off 10% of the workforce and not hire anybody, and make those remaining 90% of the people do the work of the 100%, right? So the 90 people do the work of the 100 people, and it's more efficient. It is. However, usually you start getting some disgruntled employees who are now working unpaid overtime, and things maybe not going so great, right? They're cutting employees because they're not growing sales. I personally would be looking for companies that they're growing and they're boosting employee productivity because they doubled their sales. That's the kind of company you want to go to. Exciting, growing company that's doubled sales. Wow, that's exciting. A company that's boosting employee productivity, but their sales are flat or declining. Well, if you're boosting employee productivity in that situation, it's probably, my guess would be, as employee morale may not be so great soon.
Yeah, indeed. And the thing is, when you don't have a sales performance that is climbing, but it is more of declining. The problem with that is not only the layoffs that might occur, it's also that morale that is within the team. There might be a lot of pressure that people might not stand. And go with a startup. Let me tell you that it is not the same, but you to find some cues about how a startup is going. Are they going well or not? And the first thing to look at for a startup is going to sites like Crunchbase or AngelList, in which a startup will say, hey, we received this amount of money in this stage. Maybe it is a pre-seed, a seed, seed A, or higher, in which you could see how much money did that startup receive from a VC or a set of VC, and when. So what you're looking for are within the latest year. Did they receive money? If so, how much? Usually for a pre-seed, you must be between $1 million to $2 million. If it's beneath that, whoops, it might not be a good startup to be in because they're going to be really worried about hiring the best engineers back because they don't have the budget to do it. But otherwise, if they find out that there are between 1 million and 2 million, okay, it's cool. If for a seed, it has to be between $6 to $10 million. If it's that between that range, it's cool. If it's beneath that, be wary of this same situation. This same situation.
Yeah, and being able to look up and find, research these kinds of things, like on the big corporate side, looking at the Investors Day information or their earnings report, looking at and the startups, being able to find that information is key. And so maybe you and I should make sure we text each other so we can put a list of those together in the description of key places to check for that. Because one of the things too, that those who are humane leaders who are more into the financial aspects of that, I'm sure they recognize that many corporations in their earnings call report what's called non-GAAP earnings numbers. And GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. So what that means is they can take what they have to use for accounting for legal reasons, and they can do some one-time adjustments to the numbers, which make the numbers sound much better, right? So you do need to, when you're interviewing at another company, understand what the difference is between the non-GAAP, which I would call marketing financial numbers in their annual report, versus the GAAP, the real accounting numbers. Because that's where you're going to see, wow, they actually lost money. They did some special non-GAAP number to make it seem like their income was high, but really they had a loss because they're saying that thing was a one-time cost, but it isn't really a one-time cost. In gigantic companies, frequently they would put severance as a one-time cost, except if they're a company that lays people off every single quarter, that one-time cost is a forever cost because it's going to be there every quarter because they're going to lay off more people. So, it's good to learn the language of whether it's a VC, when how the VCs talk about things, learn that vocabulary. And the same thing with big public companies. You got to learn the secret language, I guess. It's that vocabulary keywords that they sound like really good things, but there may be a negative underlying current to how the word is used. And if you listen closely in earnings calls and in the investor day presentations or look at through some of your VC reports, you can get a better sense of the company's culture. Because if they use a lot of those catchy phrases, like something seems odd about how they're saying efficiency and how often they're using it, then you want to look into that further because it may not be what you think it is. It may not be the good thing it's trying to sound like, right? Because it's in a marketing word. Because even I'm sure startups, right, they got to do things to sound more positive, right? To attract talent, to attract investors, to attract users. And I'm not saying marketing is bad. Marketing is good, right? It helps people understand what your product is. But you have to be careful when you're going to interview at some of these companies that maybe it is too good to be true, right? It sounds too good to be true. And that's probably, at startups as much as it is at big corporations.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty good little about that. Let me switch now to a startup as something really important. Since we are not, or most of the startups are not public companies, are private companies, it might be difficult to know the numbers, to crunch, to see if there is a vast amount of users buying the product. So what I suggest you is to use Google Chrome extensions such as SimilarWeb, in which you could see the number of people who are arriving at that website. If it's a company in which they deliver a web solution, so you have to log in through your browser, well, you could go with this Google Chrome extension and look at how many people have been going the last 3 months. And with that in mind, you could take a sense of what's going on. If it's an up or rising company, maybe going into the millions. But if it's less, they might not go that way. Because the thing about a startup is, depending on the phase, you could know if that company is going, it's meeting the numbers or it isn't. Let's say, for instance, um, a fintech company. Okay, if they're aiming for a B2C uh, business model, okay, they might be going for the many, for the millions. If you go to that website and it's beneath 100,000 users, or beneath 50,000 users, they might be a rocky startup. But if it's the opposite, if it's above 500,000 or 1 million, oh, that might be a good startup to be in. Well, or one of the factors to ponder, to wait in, that startup is the good one.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because that traffic, that desire for more people to learn about it is certainly a good trend to be watching for, because it really, when you're going to a new company, you're considering going to a new company and you're trying to learn about it, you gotta try every different angle, and sometimes it's official sources, like I mentioned, the earnings and the investor day calls and things like that for big companies. But even, have you done nowadays, right? What does AI have to say about it? Did you look on Grok on X? Did you go to OpenAI and use ChatGPT? Just ask and see what it says about the company. You may find that because it goes out and searches a bunch of websites that, yeah, you could go search a bunch of websites too, but it may consolidate and say, look, based on 100 websites I looked at, obviously there are going to be some people who just complain about a company constantly. But is it a majority? In other words, is it just one loud person complaining a lot? Or is it, man, no, there's hundreds of thousands of people who worked at this gigantic company and they all talk bad about it. Oh, well, it's hard for you, the person, individual, to do enough research to understand that. But using these AI tools now, they can do a lot of analysis for you. So I would go to ChatGPT. I'd use Grok on X.com and just start asking it questions about the company. How do most employees like it there? What do most employees who are ex-employees say about the company? And depending on the size of the firm, the AI tools may have some very insightful information about the company.
Sure. use AI in your favor. Actually, it will bring more information and more data that you haven't thought before. So you had to use it and you had to use it wisely. Adding to that, I would say also something really important going to LinkedIn, which is an amazing tool. What I usually do is when I go to a new company, a new startup, what I do is to find out if there was or there were people, individuals before me at that position. Okay. If they were, and they are not my contacts, I will throw them an invitation and tell them, hey, I'm interviewing for this company. Would you mind connecting with me and talking with me? And most people are not, I should say, eager to talk about their experience. Some of them will be wary, won't say, oh, yes, the whole enchilada, but they will give you some really nice information in which you could delve on and decide if this company it is what the one that you want to be or the one that you don't want to be because there are some sites that show you many rumors and people take away the baddest things about a company. Oh, if you have a one-on-one with someone who lived there, meaning that they worked, that they felt in their skin everything that the company was going, you could have a pretty good insight about what's about this company.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I don't know what the marketing or the consumer research is, right? But when people have a bad experience, they're much more likely to complain and talk about it than if they have a good experience. I mean, that's mostly around marketing and products, but I'm guessing it's like jobs too. If they, granted, there are certainly plenty of times I talk about the great things that we did, at UOP. I'm very proud of the company that I worked at. But there's also a lot of people who are very negative on the company they worked for, and they probably, at least in my experience at parties and social gatherings and things like that, the negative comments about a company probably outweigh the positives in general. So by going to LinkedIn, let's say, and talking to some of those people, you get some insight that way, and hopefully you get at least more than one sample too, if possible, right? Because it is, changing jobs is a big decision, and going to a new company, where you're probably going to spend several years of your life, maybe tens of years, depending on the kind of company, you definitely want to do your research before you buy.
Oh yeah, yeah. And for that, maybe in a big well-known company, you might not do what I'm going to tell you about at a startup. You might try and test their product and service if it's feasible. They might be selling some service that you might use, that you might require, or some product. Try using it and feel it. That if that product aligns with the values that you're looking for that it is aligned to the culture you're craving for. And with that in mind, you could say, oh, it could be cool, it could be a good company, or it might not. You have to test it. And the best way to understand if that company, meaning the number of individuals which are low or is a small number, is the one that you're looking for. Usually, startups are passionate individuals who has a growth mindset, and they're looking for someone who brings uh, not only new ideas, but bring this eagerness to push forward, to push the product and service upward. So if you find that passion within that company, looking at some other factors also with the interview, you're going the right way.
Yeah, and surprisingly, it might be possible. Again, as you're using AI to do some of the searching, what have you heard about company A, B, or C that you might go to? But just looking at what news stories are out about your company. Have they been positive? Where, hey, this company just developed this great new product and it saved 7 babies already. Super. Or is it news that, no, they dumped a bunch of chemicals and now there's a big, huge lawsuit because a bunch of people got cancer? That might be another indicator of like, maybe this company is not the culture that I'm looking for. All companies occasionally have accidents. It's unfortunate. People get injured or whatever. But if it's a common theme, like, hey, it's happened in 7 different, big international companies, it's happened in 7 countries, or something, really bad, you might say, hey, you know what, there's a lot of positive feedback. The people that work there love it, but do you as a humane leader really want to be working, let's say at a company that maybe has done some things that aren't ethical, right? They dumped chemicals in the rainforest, make it really extreme. I don't want to work at a company that's I'm a big scuba diver, as you can tell from my background. If they've done things that damage the coral reef, I don't buy their products. That's one of the ways I vote with my dollars. So that might be some way that you would decide what kind of company you'd want to work for. If they've got a lot of bad press in the news stories, just the regular, CNN kind of level news, maybe that's a place you don't want to be at.
Okay, yeah. I think there are plenty of resources that anyone can use. The one that we have spoken are truest, I think that the best ones. But one thing also that is, it has to be mandatory maybe for a well-known company or a startup, it is your intuition. If it's something that you find that is rocky, that it doesn't match, maybe that kind of company ain't the one that you should be. Try and think about this. Okay, maybe the interviewer said this, maybe I found this in the earning calls. The numbers doesn't match. The business model is, kind of shaky. I don't think this is the company for me, unless you don't have a job, you've been out of work, out of income for many, many months. Maybe that would be, but that is the decision who listens to this podcast has to make.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you really need the job, certainly your scope of what you'll consider gets much wider, right? If we're still currently employed and just casually looking for something new because we're getting bored with what we're doing, we can be very narrowly focused and be very selective about what companies we might consider. Yeah, without a doubt. I think, as much as we want to be humane leaders and only work at the perfect company that's a perfect match with perfect ethics and a perfect sales growth chart and all these things, there's also a reality, right? There has to be a job open. We have to be qualified for it, and we have to convince them that we're the best candidate that they can pick. So, a lot of things have to line up for it to be the perfect union of humane leader with company. But I think, the important thing that a humane leader does is they consider all these factors as they're interviewing and try and get the best fit. Because if it really is a great place for you to work, you will do your best humane leadership. If you're uncomfortable with what's going on in the company culture and you're uncomfortable that they may be doing some things that are technically legal but maybe a little bit unethical, as a humane leader, it's going to start to make you tense, and it's going to start to make you compromise your principles. And as a humane leader myself, my words to you, Roberto, is never go to a company that's going to make you change your principles. It's just, in the long run, it's not going to work.
Yeah, indeed. That's why I think our values are the foundation to choose either we're going to a company who is more aligned to us, that their culture is the one that we want to be in and fostering and being part, or the one who it isn't. I think it's wise for us to say no about certain opportunities unless, what I told before, you don't have any income, you have depleted your savings, and there's no other choice. Okay, in that case, that will work for you. But otherwise, you have to make the best decision as a comedian.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
Cool. Well, I think with this, we can end this episode, and I'll see you next week
Absolutely, sir. Take care. We'll see you next week.
too. Bye bye.